In the time it takes me to swim a half mile at Barton Springs today, I want to tell you a story. It's a secret, actually, a big one for me, that I've pretty much kept to myself because, frankly, I learned years ago from experience that to let people in on your vulnerabilities, well, basically, it's just plain bad for business. But now, after 27 years, at age 60, all bets are off. I don't care. I don't care anymore. So I'm just going to celebrate by having some fun, telling you a story, and getting this off my chest so I can move on one half mile at a time. Today is January 29th, 2019. It's about 24 weeks after what I consider a miracle that's happened to me right here in this ancient swimming hole. One that Indian tribes knew as a sacred place. One where they could come and heal their wounds. And that makes this story all the more relevant. Back when I was a kid in high school, I was totally obsessed with racing bicycles. The way they're so beautifully crafted, all the lugs that hold the frames together. They used to be sculpted with tiny little files and then brazed together by hand. Oh God, the master craftsmanship was so beautiful. These sleek, elegant road machines. But my love for the machine took a back seat to riding the wheels off my own bike. Mine was a really special one too. It was way too big for me, black and white, Olmo track bike. Oh man, she was beautiful, Italian, sexy as hell. She came to me when I was 15 years old with a full set of Campanola Pista parts. That's pure track racing stuff, man. And these super fine red silk Clemente sew-up tires, super high pressure. It even had a campy side pull front brake. Oh my God. To me, that was like a hood ornament on a Rolls Royce. I mowed a hell of a lot of lawns to save $125 for that bike. Not only was it just plain gorgeous and rare as hell, but dig this. Jack Disney actually raced it in the 1964 Olympics in Mexico. Man, I had to have it, and that's all there was to it. My next big thing was surfing. That was kind of like cycling in the water in a way. You know, I've always loved the sensation of gliding fast. Gliding fast on my own steam, that is. Cycling and surfing offers up that experience in spades. To paddle into the steep right or left, and drop in and take a hard bottom turn and pop up to the lip and come off, come down and set up and have a barrel come over you. To slip through that green room, it's a rare occasion for me, but when it had happened, it was absolutely glorious, man. Looking back on all this, I have to say, even though I was small, I was really strong, and I was proud of it too. It seemed like no matter what I'd ever throw at my body, it would always respond without much of a fuss. I really liked that I could move heavy stuff around without asking for assistance. And that helped me a lot as a young man, especially in construction jobs, framing houses and stuff like that. And definitely offshore when I had to work out in the Gulf in the oil field. In retrospect, it's hard to believe what I could do. Suddenly I'm remembering being drunk one night in front of the captain's table bar in Victoria, and for some reason tearing a car license plate in half with my bare hands. Jesus. These memories are just flooding my mind right now. Like one time painting a 5,000 square foot stamped metal theater ceiling in Washington, D.C. at the WPA, all in one all-night stretch, on my back. Or how we used to paddle our surfboards as fast as we could in between, with camping gear strapped on, in between these huge incoming tankers that were coming through the intercoastal waterway between Port Aransas and old St. Joe Island. Crazy stuff all the time, when you have that kind of testosterone and energy. It's just phenomenal what goes on, the stamina. When I moved to Austin, I remember I had my shop, and I just worked like 15-hour days. I just conk out at night and get up and do it again. It was just amazing. I had this energy that seemed like the only way I could tame it was these 2-hour boxing workouts down at Richard Lord's gym. Just amazing. Oh, here's one. Back in the early 90s, after I got paid for my NEA fellowship, took the money and we'd go to Nepal. I went a couple times. We'd walk around the Himalayas for like 200 miles. It'd take about 3 weeks to do it. Sometimes up to 15,000, sometimes one time up to almost 18,000 feet through Thronglong Pass. One time we ended up like crossing the border into Tibet and didn't even know it. We had to turn around and go back. When I got home from Asia, I was so fit from trekking in Nepal that I immediately started riding my bike again. Let me tell you about this one. Ooh, she was pretty. Pure Italian, Testarossa Red. I bought that bike about 10 years earlier in 1982 in Milano, Italy. It was made by a master frame builder. His name was Santa Maria. This guy only made bikes for his team members. I was a lucky exception. This man's measurements were so exacting and complete. I swear to God, this bike fit the pimples on my butt. It was done with measurements. I went straight over to the Olmo shop, of course. I had to see where my first baby came from. They had this used Kazati. That's a bike that just come off the Tour de France. It was a backup bike, really plain, but it had a full campy super record Grupo, and it was in pretty dang good shape. I bought it, stripped it to parts, so I could complete the Santa Maria. It's a whole nother story, but this bike was assembled and born on a chance Atlantic crossing on the QE2. What a hoot it was, riding her off the gangplank into Manhattan. Here's the reason why I really started riding again. Lance Armstrong, he was really young. Back then, he just won the world championship and $1 million. Hell, I was so far out of the loop I had no idea who he was. But he liked my work, and he commissioned me to make him a really nice piece for his house. He was so young that he literally had to call his mama to write me a check. I think Lance liked hanging out at my shop. I suppose it was interesting to him. One day he noticed my bike hanging up on a hook in the back. It was all dusty, it had 2 flat tires. He said, "Wow, is that yours? That's a classic." I told him I was sick of dealing with those damn sew-up tires. He said, "Man, you ought to get back on your bike." Then he invited me over to his place and gave me a set of wheels. That was really kind to him. And I have to say that gesture reunited me with the joy of riding again. Within 2 years, I was training as a sprinter, and I was in the best shape I'd ever been in. Ever. That's when I was introduced to Tuesday Nighters. That's a 27-mile unsanctioned bike race around the old Lockhart Road. You know, down by Creedmoor, kind of southeast off I-35, Slaughter Lane. I could go on. And to tell you the truth, I don't mind bragging. But that's not the point here. Let's just call these last few minutes of yammering a platform that my physical self-image rested very securely on for years. About that time, museum exhibits, public art commissions, man, they had my career in full swing. I was a busy boy back then. I considered myself a real cyclist too. I was racing. Like I said, I was in training as a sprinter. I was at the top of my game when all of a sudden, one day, I was riding my normal route from my shop downtown to Mopac, Southwest Parkway, north up 71, and Bee Caves Road and back. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hit a wall, my energy, for no reason. My strength, it all just disappeared. I got really worried. I had no way, I couldn't figure out how I was going to make it home. I had no idea how I could. And I was weak as a cat. I was really confused. one stroke at a time. That was the only way I was going to make it home. Barely. Really slowly. I was feeling myself, trying to figure out what the hell was going on with me. That's when I called my buddy Jim Brand. He's an ER doc. I said, Jim, you think you'd give me an EKG? I thought maybe there was something wrong with my heart. I just couldn't, I didn't know. I thought maybe he could figure it out. So, bless his heart, he ran an EKG, and it looked all right. He said there was one little bump somewhere. I don't know, it wasn't a big deal. I just didn't know where to go next. So I went and saw the guy that was training me, a guy named Gary Segi. He was a incredible bike racer. He was a chiropractor too, and he took a look at me, tried to get something out of my back, and it didn't. Nothing really worked. He sent me to a neurologist. Said, "Man, you ought to go see old Robert Kane. Maybe he can help you." So I went and saw this guy. He gave me it's called an EEG, and I got to tell you, man, if you ever get posed with one of those, it's one of the more barbaric tests that they can run on you. It's to have this needle, it has a microphone on the end, and they shove it through your muscle to the bone, and then they pull it back. And if that isn't bad enough, that's when they tell you to start flexing the muscle. Oh my God. I told them, I swear to God, I'll send your kid to St. Stephen's if you'll just pull it out and stop right now. Anyway, bad news came with this diagnosis. He said, you know, you got this winging in your shoulders, and well, I hate to tell you this, Ben, but looks like you've got what's called facioscapular-humeral muscular dystrophy. What? Well, hell, I didn't believe him. At least part of me didn't. The other part of me was scared to death. I don't know, but one way or another, I found myself at the Muscular Dystrophy Association. After Dr. Kane told me, well, there's really nothing, there's no cure for this. There's really nothing you can do or nothing we can do. Try to get some gentle exercise, but don't overdo it. And here's a card for an orthopedic surgeon. When you fall apart, he's pretty good at putting people back together. Oh my God. So yeah, I'm at the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They give me some tests and kind of confirm what Kane saw and thought, and so I'm in with the head neurologist, and I say, so he said, well, I'm sorry, there's just nothing anybody can do about this. And my girlfriend at the time, I guess she was poking around about long distance relationships and long-term relationships, and she said, so what can we expect Ben to be like in, when he's 60? And this doctor kind of sat back in his chair. Oh my God. He sat back in his chair and he looked at us and he said, well, I'm pretty sure Ben will still be able to swallow when he's 60. And he'll probably be able to walk upstairs still and stuff like that. Well, I can tell you, when you hear something like that from someone in an authority figure, you think you're strong. You think you got some sort of will that kind of keeps you buoyant. But eventually, for people like me anyway, eventually, in the middle of the night, it gets a hold of you. And it grabs on tight. And that demon won't let go. This demon haunted me in the middle of the night for 21 years. And it seems like when I was 59 years old, I was really kind of falling apart. I really was feeling this destiny that this son of a bitch put down on my head. I was down at Barton Springs just last spring. My knees were going out. My back and my shoulders were really tight and tensing up. And I was impinged in my shoulders. And I thought, oh my God, this is really happening. I mean, this guy's right on time. Jeez. I went and saw an orthopedic surgeon. He told me I was going to need a knee replacement. I couldn't believe it. He gave me a prescription for Celebrex and told me a steroid shot might help. So I went to the pharmacy and I talked to the pharmacist there, who's a really cool guy. I said, would you take this crap? He said, no. I'm an athlete and I get knee injuries all the time. I go to this place called Charm. I get stem cell and plasma replacements. Really helps my recovery. I said, well, I can't afford that. He said, well, I got somebody else. He does this weird muscle release technique. Why don't you go see him? So I called him, and I went and saw him. Now, this is really an uncomfortable treatment, I got to tell you. In fact, he told me one time that Navy SEAL came to him once and begged him to stop. He said, man, I've been waterboarded several times. I got to tell you, if you'll quit right now, I swear to God, I'll give you the PIN number to my credit card. This guy's a trip. You've never felt anything so intense. Anyway, I got to tell you, I went skipping out of this appointment. My knees were like 80% better, and they got better after that. So I went back to him. I said, hey, you ever worked with anybody that has muscular dystrophy? He said, well, I've attempted. Yeah, a little. I said, we can try something. So he went in there. Man, I'm telling you, he goes places you don't want anybody, including yourself, to go. He went up under my armpit, and he went down and separated all my serratus muscles, and oh my God. But by the end of that week, I was feeling some space in my arms, and I was feeling like there was a little more strength in there. And I went to Barton Springs. Patty and I went down there together. One day I was swimming. I was barely able to do my old pitiful dog paddle, and I certainly couldn't do my frog kick because of my knee. It was still pretty sore for that. But I noticed I was able to swim a little better, and so always hopeful. I stretch out my arm as if I was going to do a crawl. Now, I haven't done a crawl since like 1991 when I was in Anahist's gym, when I was first getting the first odd symptoms that were this, but I didn't know it back then. So that was July 23rd, just a week or so before my 60th birthday. And I reached out as though I was going to do a crawl, never successful before, but oh my God, my hand went out and I drew the water back behind me. And I thought, wow, let's try the left. So my left arm pushed out in front of me. I pulled it back and I went forward. And I tried it again with my right, and then my left again, and then my right, and my left again, and pretty soon, Jesus, I was like Forrest Gump. I dropped my crutches, and it was like, out of my way, man. And I swam from about halfway from the dam to the diving board in Barton Springs, and I almost started crying. I just couldn't believe it. I looked back, and there was Patty with this giant grin on her face. She had seen it. I had a witness. This was not a dream. Completely exhausted, but I was out of my mind with excitement. After another treatment or two, and right before my 60th birthday, I actually worked up to a half of a mile swim. So every time I swim now, and I see my hands thrusting into the water in front of me, like that, and see those beautiful bubbles shooting back from behind it, those silver bubbles, it reminds me of that moment that I pushed through the water for the first time. It was like I got a second chance. I got a second chance. And now I swim every time I can. Rain or shine, cold or hot, it doesn't matter, because the beauty and the healing powers of this spring are making me stronger and stronger all the time. These days, I'm just swimming time, not distance. I swim 30 minutes. That's about 3/4 of a mile, sometimes just 5/8, but it's getting stronger all the time. On my 60th birthday, my sister and Patty, they threw me this fantastic surprise birthday party. And at that birthday party, I told this story because I was just so excited about my life. I told this story to, God, there must have been about 500 years of friendships there at that party. And I said, hey, I'd like everybody to face the north. maybe where that doctor is right now. And I'd like everybody to join with me and face the north where he is and shoot both fingers at him and say, "Screw you, man, you are dead wrong. I'm all right. I'm swallowing. I can swim a half a mile. I don't need this. I am good." And ever since then, that demon is gone. It's almost like an exorcism happened. I struggle with the thought of becoming a burden to other people. And I tell you, if there hadn't been, interesting things in my life that come around that kept me buoyant, there were plenty of times I just didn't want to be around at all anymore. But things are different now, it seems like, and I think I've grown up a little bit. Great thing that comes from getting a second chance like this is hopefully you've learned something. So what have I learned from all this? Well, for one thing, I realize I'm not that afraid of death anymore. It's not living. That's what scares the hell out of me. So this is what I always say now. If you stick around, something always seems to come to you. Something good, like waves coming in. That's the art of living. And since I can't have back all that painful time I wasted in the dark, out of control in my emotions, I'll be damned if I'm ever gonna let bad news be my curator again. So until fate breaks my stride, I'm just gonna be down here in the sunshine, keeping on, 1/2 mile at a time.